Hey, we're back again. Back again for some more punishment. Is it punishment at this point? It's probably punishment, right? We've been working on this song for a while, but we are getting there. We're getting to a really good spot with it. So, just in case you are new to the live thing going on here, or just in case you're watching this back later, and you haven't watched the other episodes, my name is Luke Nealeigh. I am the lead guitarist and producer for the band AfterWinter. Our first full-length album, Majennica, was released back in 2023, which at this moment was just a couple years ago. Not quite 2 full years ago. We are almost finished with our second full-length album called Boundless, and we are live streaming the mixing process for the entire thing. We are still working on track 1 right now, which is called Poison in the Well, and that's what we're going to get into today. So if you're hanging out, thanks for checking it out. Hope you enjoy what you watch. Throw some stuff in the chat. If we're live, let me know you're here. I always like to interact a little bit and hang out. I mean, if we're going to do it live, we might as well talk a little bit, you know? Hey, let's get rid of my big dumb face here and switch to the much better looking screen that has less of my big dumb face on it. There we go. I think we're all working here. Make sure that what I'm looking at is halfway decent here. I think I am going to adjust the mixer camera just a little bit here. Yeah, that looks okay. There we go. So you can kind of see what's going on here down here on the mixer world. Okay, so that when we left off last time, it was a little abrupt, but we were in the middle of our rhythm guitars. So right now, most of the song is muted, if you will. We're in solo mode here so that you can hear what I'm saying. We are hearing the drums and the rhythm guitars, and we are paying special attention to the rhythm guitars, searching out any areas where James and I, the two guitarists in the band, are not playing the same thing. Our rhythms are quad-tracked. So we have James in the left, James in the right, and then me in the left, me in the right. So looking at our 4 channels here on the screen right now, and we are just going to kind of move through it, searching for spots where we're not playing the same thing. Most of the time we are playing the same thing, but anytime we're not, we want to make sure those spots remain in balance. Ah, yes. Dad says, so this song is setting up presets or something that will be applied to the other songs, making the process go faster for the other songs, correct? Yes, for the most part. Now, don't get me wrong. The other songs are not going to, like, fly by or anything. The other songs are still going to take a while. But, yes, this song is going to set up presets which will allow us a really good starting point for the future songs on the album. So we're going to be importing the presets that we use on this so that we can put that on the stuff for the new songs and start from there and then make adjustments. So the songs won't sound perfect right away, but we will be in a much better place, and they should take a lot less time than this first song, both because pretty much every song on the album is shorter than this one, other than the final track, I think. And somebody else from the band can correct me if that's wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's right. I think this one and the final track are long, and there's some other like longish ones, but for the most part, they're shorter than this one, which will automatically make them take less time. Oh, yes, there's Lynn as well. Hey. Indeed. Sorry we had to skip the lesson today, by the way, Lynn. This was, I was supposed to be headed to a production rehearsal right now, but they moved them all back. So since I had already canceled everybody, I thought, well, we'll get some AfterWinter stuff done instead. Yes, Dad also said, I was thinking that was what you said. The song has all the elements the other songs use. Yes, all or most of the elements for the entire album are present in this first song. So we should be able to move over a ton of the presets and start from a really good place. Sam says, just make sure the mix is well balanced like my diet, which is 80% reverb and 20% pizza. That is a healthy diet right there. Lynn says, geez, skipping lessons to work on your record. What kind of person are you? Yes, one who does not like money very much, apparently. Skipping work and having billions of guitars. I guess the camera can only see one rack of them, but there are several. Trust me. There's objectively too many guitars in this room. Yes. So it's sounding really good at the moment. We're going to continue moving on with this as well. I feel like there was something else I was going to throw out there and I've forgotten. Oh, yes. Something that I was talking about with James this weekend that that applies to this, I think, and or at least I hope. I always remember that once I was watching a documentary on the making of Def Leppard's Hysteria album. Now, Def Leppard was a huge influence for me, so of course I watched a bunch of their stuff. And they said that when the album was totally tracked and it was ready to mix, Mutt Lange took the stuff, and it took him 6 weeks to mix the first song, but then it only took him 6 more weeks to mix the whole rest of the album. So I always kind of try to remember that with this. The first song is always kind of the long haul, and that doesn't necessarily mean the opening song on the album, although it was that way for this particular thing. The first song is the long haul because you're kind of establishing how the album's going to sound. And then for the rest, you can kind of build from that. Lynn says, I'm never going to learn guitar now. Yes. Yeah, this 1 week, this was the linchpin week right here. And now it's all in the toilet. We're going to have to start from scratch. Okay, let's get started. So as I mentioned, we're looking at our 4 guitar tracks right here. The yellow line, just in case you are new and missed this last time, the yellow line represents the visual volume, basically. So we can manipulate that yellow line up or down, and that will be the volume moving up and down. Also, if you pay attention to the little box that has my mixers in it, this will affect the position of the faders in the real world, which is super neat. So when this song is finished and we've got a lot of this stuff jumping up and down by itself, it's like this thing is doing a weird little dance almost. It's pretty cool to watch. One of my favorite aspects of owning this equipment. It's so cool to me that we have this. This can do that stuff. Okay, let's jump in and take some listens here. Oh no, I've pressed play and nothing happened. Okay. I didn't have Logic selected. There we go. Right. So we're in the second verse right here. All of these little harmony sections right here we did affect in the first verse. So there's really no reason we couldn't do the same thing we did. It's not guaranteed that it'll work, but it'll give us a good starting point. Also, I don't think I was hearing the drums. There we go. Okay, yeah, we weren't hearing the drums. It's probably because we spent some time at the end of the last stream fixing that weird little mistake that we found. So anyway, we need to find all those measures where James and I are in harmony. And I think what we did in the first verse to balance that was James goes up a decibel, I go down a decibel. So 170 is going to be our first thing there. Now, there was a section earlier where I was playing an octave. I think I was an octave up from him, but honestly, I think that was balanced already. I think it was fine as is without us messing with it. Okay, so James up, me down. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so we have a bunch of these little, like, measure-long things. There we go. So kind of like one measure on, one measure off. By the way, if you are looking to see the actual sliders move, over here in the little box that has the mixers in it, you're looking at these 4 channels right here. 2, 3, 4, 5 right here. You'll see these 2 and 3 will jump up a little bit, and 4 and 5 will move down a little bit. And you'll see them kind of twitching back and forth. So we got 178 there. Given it is not a very big move, we are only talking about moving a decibel here, so I'm hoping that the camera is actually good enough to even catch that small of a movement. Hopefully you guys can see that. Okay, and I imagine we're probably kind of doing that same thing here. Measure on, measure off, if you will. That, oh, come on, go to 8.5. There we go. Logic and I get into arguments over 0.1 decibels pretty often. I cannot for the life of me figure out why, if the programmers were going to design these numbers to kind of magnetize to a specific one, rather than just doing equally all of them, why wouldn't they magnetize to the ones that are like 0.0 or 0.5? Why would it go straight from 8.4 to 8.6? In harmony right there too, but again, I think that's fine as is. I don't think we need to adjust that. Okay, now we do have a jump down here. You guys can see that on the screen that we jump down 1.5 decibels, both guitars. This is where the leads are. This is where the guitar solo happens, and so pretty typically I drop the rhythm guitars by about 1.5 decibels during solos to help make room for the solos. This is something that when we turn the full quality mix with everything back on, we want to really watch carefully. We want to make sure that this drop is still necessary, because as I've mentioned a couple times in other episodes, we've done a lot better this time on making sure that things slot together frequency-wise, so it is possible that this drop right here is no longer necessary. We're going to leave it for now, because I've pretty much always done it, but we need to listen to make sure that it's actually necessary. The little break for the clean guitars, and then we come back for chorus 3. the end. Now, a couple of things. I think there's a good chance that we're going to have to spend a lot of time on this final chorus with everything in there. There's a lot of stuff going on in this final chorus, and we want to make sure that everything is properly represented, and that we have a couple of little neat things popping out. One of the things I want to make sure is popping out is, I think it was right around here, this neat little thing that the rhythm guitars are doing. I want to make sure that jumps out a little bit, so if it's not doing that naturally, we may need to come in here and turn that up a little bit. Also, I suspect that he and I are playing something a little different right at the beginning. It mixes pretty well, so I don't know if we need to mess with it, but I'd kind of like to confirm if I'm hearing that right. This is just James and the drums. Right, that's the main part. That's what I would have expected both of us to be playing. So did I do something different there? I don't remember doing that. Interesting. Okay, so again, I'm playing the same chords pretty much, but an octave up, and in different inversions. My brain just flushed that word. But yes, let's listen again. I'm not sure that we need to mess with that. I think it's okay that my part is just kind of adding a little bit of a different texture to the main part, which is what James is playing. Yeah, honestly, I think it's fine like that. I don't think we need to move that up and down. I can hear my part, now that I know for sure that we're doing something different, well enough. There's a lot of stuff going on right there. So if something's got to get buried, that weird little extra stuff I'm doing would be the top of the chart is for what can kind of get lost. But I'm still hearing it well enough that it's adding, when we muted it, you could tell that there was something a little bit different. Okay, next step, we want to turn the bass back on. So now we're going to be hearing drums, rhythm guitars, and bass guitar, and this creates our bass layer. And in this case, when I say bass, I mean B-A-S-E, our bass layer. I think we'll turn the clean guitars on as well, actually. We need that one right there. And we're going to especially pay attention to how those interact in chorus 3, the clean guitars and the rhythm guitars. And we want to just kind of see how everything's sitting. Now, I'm pretty confident at this point that this is going to be good. I'm going to play a little bit of this. I want to go grab a different drink. I've finished my Mountain Dew, which is the worst part of every day. Am I right? So I need to grab another Mountain Dew. I'm going to let the beginning of this play for you guys while I do that. We'll listen to a bit, and then I'll probably jump out to that last chorus. nice. Turned on our mid-range bandpass there for just a second, which we talked a lot about at the end of episode 4, just to make sure that we are still really clearly hearing everything in the mix and that there's nothing that's kind of sticking out more than anything else. I watched some of these streams back on my phone just to see if there are things that I can do about the setup better. And I thought it was pretty funny when I watched that section of episode 4 that when I turn on the mid-range bandpass, watching on my phone, it didn't even hardly sound any different. So that really like drives home the purpose of that mid-range bandpass. It's kind of like listening to it through a phone speaker and making sure that it's still pretty well balanced. Thought that was pretty funny. Okay, let's take a listen to that final chorus. So now we're going to hear some clean guitars, and then everything's going to come back in. Drums, bass, distortion rhythm guitars, clean guitars, and we want to really check out kind of the balance because I want those clean guitars to come through. They don't need to be the focal point, but I do want them to be adding a little something. So it's possible that we may need to turn the distortion rhythm guitars down just a little, not very much, but just a little to give these clean guitars room to also be in there. Okay, so that's definitely something that we want to spend a little bit of time on right now because I don't know about you guys, I didn't hear them very much once the clean guitar or once the distortion guitars kicked in. I could tell they were there, but only because I kind of know what they're doing. I couldn't really hear what was going on, and honestly, mostly what it seemed like it added was mud, like a lot of low, mid, extra just noise. So let's take a look at that section with our bandpass on, that mid-range bandpass, and see if we can pick out again that same mud. Maybe those clean guitars need a little bit less of like somewhere between 2 and 500 hertz so that they can jump out just a little bit better, or at least stop adding negative stuff. A little better. Cut a little bit at 300 and added a little bit at 4,000. Not convinced that the 4,000 boost should be there yet. Okay, yeah, at least with the bandpass on, I'm feeling pretty good about hearing those a little better. I think maybe we could use some volume automation to maybe bring them up just a little bit when chorus 3 hits. But other than that, I think we're doing pretty good there. Another question I want to ask. First, I want to hear that without the bandpass to see if that's helped the full quality at all. Do they pop out a little bit better now? And then our other question is, there are kind of two distinct sections with clean guitars in them. There's the section where the clean guitars are pretty much by themselves, and then there's this big chorus 3 where everything jumps back in. Yeah, 1 second on that, yes. And we know that this is benefiting the entire mix when everything comes in, but we also want to check these two changes I just made, the cut at 300 and the boost at a little over 2500. Do those make the section where the clean guitars are by themselves worse? Because we can turn them off just for that section if it's not benefiting them. Dad says, do you recommend sound engineers do this work with regular Mountain Dew or Livewire? Why don't they make Diet Livewire? That's a good question. I don't know. Why don't they make Diet Livewire? You know, if we could get these streams super popular and everybody everywhere was watching, we could petition the Pepsi company to start making Diet Livewire. We need to start making that a thing. Let's put that in the liner notes in the AfterWinter album when we have this thing, when it's physically made. That needs to be in the liner notes too. Make Diet Livewire, and we can start this movement. As far as recommendations, I think it depends on the day. You know what I mean? Whatever is going to get you moving in the right direction. I've been on a Livewire kick recently. There was a long time that I did not want Livewire. I don't know why. It just didn't sound good for like a pretty long time. And recently that's like, if it's not the Baja Blast, which I like in the cans, it seems to be like I'm drinking Livewire. So I don't know. Maybe Poison in the Well is kind of a Livewire. It's kind of an orange flavored. I don't know. That's a question better suited for you. What color is this song? I imagine the different sections are probably different colors. Is orange in this one somewhere? Let's check this thing out, that final chorus in full quality, and see if those EQ changes made a good difference. This translated for you guys on whatever systems you're listening to. For me, that made a big difference. Suddenly I could hear everything that was going on. Perfect. That was good. Dad says this song is definitely cool colors. Purple, dark blue, black. Nice. So this is kind of like a deeper shaded song then, right? That's awesome. So orange is probably a little too bright then for this. I love that whole how that stuff works is super interesting. Okay, now, as far as that chorus, I think those EQ changes made a world of difference. I love this mid-range bandpass thing, because before, even so few years as, like, mixing Paramnesia and Reclamation, I would have just turned the clean guitars up, and if it didn't work, I would have been like, ugh, well, guess that just didn't pan out. It was that simple. A little cut at 300, a tiny little boost at 2500. Suddenly, without adjusting the volume at all, we can hear those guitars. Now, the when we were coming out, when everything kind of fades back out and it's just those clean guitars going da 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 da, they seemed a little bit bright. So it is absolutely possible that we need to get rid of one or both of these EQ changes when the clean guitars are by themselves, and only have them active during that final chorus when everything is in there. Let's kind of take a listen to the section where the clean guitars are totally by themselves and see if they sound weird now, because they definitely didn't before. They still sound okay. Would you guys agree? What happens if we turn off the boost on the high end? Definitely hearing the change. If we turn those two things off, you can hear that it is a little bit different when they're on and off. I don't dislike the high end. I think that's okay. I thought that the 300 cut was totally fine until I turned it off. We are losing a little bit that I don't know if I want to lose during that part. Yeah, you know what? Let's go ahead and do that. What is that? This is number 4. So here's how we do this. The EQ that I'm messing with is on the Clean Guitars Master. So we're going to open up the automation screen, take a look at Clean Guitars Master. Over here where it says volume, we can change this to automate pretty much anything that we want. So if we go down here to the channel EQ, we can go to, I think that was peak 3, right? Yeah, it was the peak 3 on and off. We can create an envelope, and now our envelope is controlling that particular thing on the EQ. So now, if we create a couple of nodes here right at chorus 3, we can turn the 300 cut off during the part where the clean guitars are by themselves. It will suddenly jump on and cut during chorus 3, and then I think I would like for it to turn back off at the end of the song, which happens right here. Just like that. And again, we can actually watch this happen. Now, it won't be watching the mixers this time. It'll be watching the EQ screen right here. So as you can see, our cut at 300 is now gone. The peak is turned off. But as soon as we move over into that chorus, bop, there it suddenly appears. And we can watch this happen in real time in the song too. So we'll play the end of this clean part right here. And you can see that cut is gone. And right when this chorus hits, it'll turn back on. Back off here. Perfect. Okay. Now we may need to do some more adjustment on that later when we've got everything in there. Obviously, we're not hearing the full context of the mix. We're just hearing part of it. But again, we have set ourselves up to make those moves hopefully a little bit easier when we actually get to them. Okay, so now we're going to turn everything back on. just like that. We're going to save. And we should be listening again now to the full quality mix with everything in it. And we're going to be moving forward with this stuff. So we want to kind of keep an eye in both places. We want to keep an eye looking back at the stuff we've already messed with. We're pretty good on the drum fills, I think, because we were listening to everything when we did that. But the bass guitar stuff, we had not the full context. So we're going to want to keep an eye and an ear on some of those sections, especially the solo where we made that little adjustment with the bass guitar moving up. Same thing with all those rhythm guitar spots. Now that everything is in, are all the little adjustments we made in there still good? Especially that cut in the solo. Let's go ahead and look at that right now. Before I forget about it, we're going to jump up to the solo now that everything's back in, and we're going to see if cutting the volume of the rhythm guitars just a little bit, just by 1.5 decibels, actually benefits that, or if it feels like suddenly something drops out of the song.
Your words have been dismissed.
I don't know about you guys, I can't hear them. I can't hear the rhythm guitars. It's like they suddenly disappeared. Interesting. So now, if we temporarily turn our volume automation off on the guitars so they don't drop in the solo, can we still hear them?
Words have been dismissed.
Would you look at that? Okay, yeah, I don't think that drop in volume is necessary. That's wild, guys. I have been doing that since Decadence Divine, at least. Dropping the rhythm guitars about 1.5 decibels during solos to make room for the solos. You live and you learn. You learn new stuff every day. That is crazy. That is crazy. Okay. Nice. Okay, my brain has just been broken by that. I can't even think about what's happening next. All right. Might want to turn the orchestra down during the solo a little bit. Orchestra seemed a little bit loud during that when it was just holding big chords there. Okay, so now we want to go track by track. We're keeping everything in full quality now because we know our bass layer is good. Again, B-A-S-E, bass layer is good. The drums, bass guitar, rhythm guitars are all in pretty good. They match up well. They're in harmony, I guess, if you want to call it that. So we're going to be going track by track now and really looking at, can we tell what's going on this track? Or maybe that's not a good way to put it. Let me think about a better way to put this. Because again, like we talked about with the toms, we don't need to specifically hear every single thing that's happening. But what is there should be adding something. Even if we're not consciously hearing it, it needs to be kind of giving the song a little bit of heft or the Wendy's effect, as we've coined. The song should, or what we're looking at should be doing something, even if we're not hearing it in perfect clarity. So we're going to be going bit by bit. Our first thing that we're going to be looking at now is the piano. Now, this is a very important thing that we brought up a couple of times before. The only time that there is piano in this song is during the first two choruses. In the first chorus, Sam is doubling the riff that James and I are playing. In the second chorus, Sam continues playing that riff, but James and I are just hitting big open power chords, meaning that we wanted the focus of that particular riff anyway in this chorus to be on the piano rather than the guitars. And at the moment, we can't hear the piano super well right there. So that is something that we're going to need to focus on. During the first chorus, we need to set a precedent for the piano playing that riff by making it audible enough, but not covering the guitars. It's not the important thing. In the first chorus, this piano playing this riff is part of the support with the guitars. But in the second chorus, that piano is the thing playing the riff. So we may even need to bring the rhythm guitars down a little bit to make sure that that piano playing the riff is something that's, there. Again, we want to make sure that we're maintaining that line of balance between, we don't need to turn it up until we're hearing it in perfect clarity. We need to turn it up until it's adding the thing it needs to add. Especially considering this is a chorus, we have to be careful that the riff does not overtake the vocals, because your average listener is going to be paying attention to the vocals right there. We don't want the riff to be so loud that they can't really tell what's being said. Okay, so first chorus. Pretty good there. The piano, I could hear the piano. It definitely wasn't front and center. It was really close to what I was talking about, I think, based on what I'm hearing. It's there. It's supporting the guitar playing the riff. It's not the main focal point. I did change the reverb, the piano reverb a little bit. Oh, you know what? I actually did that in a way that I don't want to. I was feeling like the reverb was adding a little bit of mud again. That those low mids are being a little bit troublesome. I want to add an EQ after the reverb plug-in to get rid of some of 300. Again, just that 300 seems to be a trouble frequency for me. Usually that's where my kind of mud is. Those low mids need cut right around that 300. Just so that the reverb isn't adding too much just wah sound in there, basically. We may need to turn the piano up just a little bit, but if we do, it won't be much. Guardians of his word, we are called to strengthen our purpose. The world looks to us, but what they see is indifference. Temptations of power have blinded many. Within his house they dwell. The waters take. Guardians of his word, we are called to strengthen our purpose. The world looks to us, but what they see is indifference. Temptations of power have blinded many. Within his house they dwell. Our message hated, the waters tainted. There's poison in the well. The world gets darker. Getting there, still getting there. Working on a couple of different moves here. Might be hearing just a hair too much bass. I turned the orchestra down just a little bit there too. Guardians of his word, we are called to strengthen our purpose. So this is something that I try to keep in mind too when I'm doing this sort of stuff too. If I'm pushing the volume of something up and I'm still not quite getting what I want out of it, even though I've pushed it a volume level that I feel like I should be hearing it pretty well, I'm starting now to look at what is taking up the space that I want this to take up. And what I'm keep coming back to, at least in this course, is that orchestra. The orchestra just feels like it's adding a little bit too much. I don't want to take away what the orchestra is adding, because it is adding ambience. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I muted it there for a while in the chorus. And I was looking to see what disappears from the chorus if I mute this. And I would say there were two answers. The one thing that disappears is a lot of the just kind of flappy noise that's going on, but also some of that like cool little ambience that makes AfterWinter was suddenly gone too. It didn't sound like AfterWinter anymore. Even though I didn't mute Sam's part, I muted part of Sam's part. You know what I mean? So it's an interesting thing too. It's a line that we want to come up to that we have to stand on. We can't cross it by getting rid of the orchestra in this section or turning it down to a point you don't hear it, but we can't come short of the line either and let this orchestra kind of like muddy up the chorus. You know what I mean? This is something that we got to kind of take a look at and see what needs done here. The first thing I want to try, and I don't know, this is a little bit of a shot in the dark if I'm being totally honest here. I want to try putting another channel EQ on the orchestra. Now we've got a channel EQ up there, but it's that mid cut. It's the 4 decibels at 400 hertz or something that's only in the middle channel, which is helping push the orchestra out into the left and right sides. So if we put a second EQ on that's affecting the entire signal, and again, make a cut, let's go a little bit on the bassier side. So not quite 300, 250 is probably a good starting point. And let's make a cut right here in the low mids again, so that we're not getting rid of what the orchestra is doing, but we are kind of getting rid of some of the just that flappy sound. It's not adding a lot of good things to the song, it's just taking up space.
Guardians of his word, we are called to strengthen our purpose. The world looks to us, but what they see is indifferent. Temptations of power have blinded many. Within his house they dwell. Our message hated, the water's tainted. There's poison in the well. The world gets darker every day. We claim we're making progress.
Okay, I think that did it. I was able to turn the orchestra back up because it kind of disappeared there for a second, making that cut right there. So I turned the orchestra up a little bit more just to see if that's what it was. That's also why I soloed the orchestra for a second, so that we could make sure that the orchestra doesn't sound weird without what we cut out of it just there. And it still sounded normal, sound fine. So put everything back in, turn it up a little bit, talking half a decibel, and suddenly it's there again, but it doesn't seem to be taking up the same space that it was. So let's kind of go back to focusing on the piano part here.
Guardians of his word, we are called to strengthen our purpose. The world looks to us, but what they see is indifference.
still don't think I'm quite hearing the piano as well as I want to. I'm debating if we need to cut a little bit more in the actual piano too, because that piano also seems pretty mid-heavy. Maybe we could push it louder if it weren't quite so mid-heavy. We may also want to target kind of more of a high, a boost in the high end to make it a little bit more brilliant, a little bit more shiny, if you will. Now, we've got to be careful about boosts based on where the EQ is at the moment. So in the signal chain, the EQ comes first, and then the compressor, and then saturation. Saturation, we don't really need to worry about right at the moment. But, excuse me, if we're boosting in the EQ, there's a chance that this compressor is just going to compress it almost back out of there. Or at least it's going to be pushing the sound back down, whereas we are trying to boost it here. So there's a chance that we actually kind of want another EQ on this. We're almost getting out of hand with the amount of plugins on each channel here, but let's do a little work here and just see if we can get this piano to come out a little bit better without turning it up further. So first off, let's try a cut around 230 to try and get rid of a little bit of those low mids. It may need to go higher than that. I'm not convinced that this is low mids yet. It might be more like normal, like actual middle. And then let's also try a boost around 3,500. Let's go 3,400 because I usually boost 3,500 for drum attack. And we don't want the piano to be fighting the drums. Yeah, let's target this a little bit better with 1.5, and let's try that. Just 3 decibel cut in the low mids, 3 decibel boost in the highs, just to see what that does.
Guardians of His word, we are called to strengthen our purpose.
Yeah, okay, I'm definitely hearing it better. It there at the end. I definitely still, despite focusing on the piano there, heard my low harmony that I was complaining about in either the last episode or the episode of before, where it's like it suddenly jumps in the middle of the word tainted. Like the Ted part is really loud compared to the rest of it. And I had forgotten about that. But despite myself, still caught it just there. So that's definitely something we're going to have to get in volume automation. Okay, so we still did end up pushing the volume of the piano a little bit more until it was there. But I think everything else we've done so far has also been necessary. Okay, let's jump to chorus 2. And again, the focus shifts in this a little bit different. A lot of the instruments are doing the same thing. The vocals are singing the same melody with slightly different words. Sam is still playing the same thing, still playing that riff, but James and I are doing just big open power chords now. So now, the focal point, at least as far as this riff is concerned, is only in the piano. Rather than the piano being a support to the riff, it is the riff. So we don't want it to be huge. We don't need it to cover the vocals, but we do want to make sure that we can hear that the piano is still playing that riff, even if it means we have to turn the rhythm guitars down just a hair.
Guardians of his word, we are called to bolster resistance. The world looks to us, but what we show is our weakness. Temptations of glory have blinded many. Within his house they dwell. Ministry negated, the water's tainted. There's poison in the well. We failed to.
Okay. Yes. You know what? I think we did turn the rhythm guitars down. We sure did. We actually already knocked the rhythm guitars down about a decibel here. Okay, so we're close. You know what I mean? This is, the piano is there. I can hear it, but I worry that I can hear it because I know what it's doing. It does need to be there a little bit better than that. I noticed when I muted the orchestra that I was hearing it way better, which usually means that the orchestra and the piano are fighting for space in the frequency range. So we may need to do kind of like what we did with the bass drum and the bass guitar, determine kind of a fundamental frequency range in which each thing lives, cut for one, boost there, cut one range, boost the other range, and then on the other one do the opposite moves, so that they can both sit in there without kind of fighting each other, which is kind of what I was getting at in that first chorus. I just hadn't fully formulated the idea yet, but now I'm quite sure. I'm quite sure that the reason we're having trouble getting this piano to jump through a little better is because it's fighting the orchestra. Okay, now this is also something we're going to want to do in our later channel EQ probably, because if we put this on the piano's master, it's going to affect the organs too, and I'm not sure that the organs need that, you know what I mean? So the orchestra, on the other hand, so right now we've affected a cut at 200. Both of these instruments sit kind of in the mid or higher mid kind of naturally. Now both instruments arguably take up the entire frequency range, which is one of the reasons that it's kind of hard to work orchestra into stuff like this. But let's just kind of pick a couple. We definitely want to do a 1.5 range. Just kind of thinking out loud here. So if we do 1.5 and 1.5 here, and let's try and let the orchestra take up more middle and the piano taking up a little bit more high mid, I think. Let's say 600. I'm not going to lie to you guys, I'm shooting in the dark a little bit here. I'm confident in the theory. I'm not sure yet that what we're actually doing will fix it. Let's try that. So if we tell the orchestra to sit kind of at 600, but not at 1,000, boost 600, cut 1,000, and we'll come back over here to our piano, and we're going to do the opposite moves. I'm going to need to use node 1 here. Cut 600. Boost 1,000. Theoretically, this should allow them to occupy space. We've kind of told them to go into this slot. Even though they're taking up more than that, we're kind of we're allocating them this little area right here. Let's see if that did anything. Like I said, I'm confident in my theory that this is what needs to happen. I'm not confident in the frequency ranges I chose.
Guardians of his word, we are called to bolster resistance. The world looks to us, but what we show is our weakness. Temptations of glory have blinded many. Within his house they dwell.
progress. I wouldn't call it fixed. Definitely progress, though. So with the cuts as we put them, suddenly I wasn't hearing the piano as well as I was before. But when I muted the orchestra, I still wasn't hearing the piano as well as we were before, which means the orchestra and the piano are no longer fighting for space, but cutting the piano at 600 seemed to get rid of most of the sound. So that's not what we want, at least not for this. Just because I'm curious, let's try flipping them. So if we boost the piano at 600, but cut it at 1,000, and then for the orchestra, I also boosted and cut at different values, which is not what I meant to do. And then cut at 1,000, or cut at 600 and boost at 1,000 for the orchestra. So we're just flip-flopping which one got cut and boosted. Does that make any difference?
Guardians of his word, we are called to foster resistance. The world looks to us, but what we show is our weakness. Temptations of glory, within his house they dwell. Ministry negated, the water's tainted, there's poison in the well. We fail to.
Okay, I definitely think that was better. Suddenly I could hear the piano. I'm not hearing the high end of the piano quite as much as I want to, though. So that 1,000, that cut at 1,000 might be hurting us. Let's try reducing the cut.
Guardians of his word, we are called to foster resistance. The world looks to us, show is our weakness. Temptations of glory have blinded many. Within his house they dwell. Ministry negated, the water's tainted, there's poison in the well. We fail to show.
Okay, yeah. Yep, I think we are getting where we want to go there. I'm starting to hear both of them. I can hear the piano about where I want to hear it. Muting the orchestra doesn't make the piano louder, so they're no longer arguing over trying to take up the same frequencies. It also doesn't feel like the orchestra has disappeared because of those cuts, which is good. It's certainly a little less prominent, but I don't think that's a bad thing in the context of this chorus anyway. One more thing I want to try just to see what it does. We've now boosted the piano at 600 hertz. What happens if we make a little cut in the rhythm guitars at that same frequency? We'll repurpose our 1200 cut. Hey, there's Corey. How's it going, man? Long time no see. Hope you're doing good. Corey is a good friend of Eli's and mine as well. He's a videographer. Did some videos for Eli's band, This Blessed Hatred, which also had our vocalist Jerry in it. Great guy. Love hanging out and talking. It's been too long. Okay, so looking at that 600. So I've just made a tiny little cut at 600 hertz in the rhythm guitars. Just a 1 decibel, just a tiny little change there. And let's just see. We're at chorus 1 now. I want to stay at chorus 2. There we go. And let's just see 2 things here. Does this make the piano pop out better? Theoretically, it should. But maybe more importantly, does this make the guitars sound weird? Because if the guitars sound weird, we don't want to keep this cut.
Guardians of his word, we are called to foster resistance.
Okay, yeah. I think I did hear the piano just slightly better, not a bunch. And also, it doesn't really seem to change the way the guitars sound that much. So I think we're good there. So we boosted the piano at 600. We've also cut the rhythm guitars a little, just a tiny little bit at 600, so that it gives the pianos a little bit more room to shine through. Let's also check out chorus 1 and make sure that that didn't do anything negative to chorus 1, since the rhythm guitars and the piano are both playing that riff. We want those to be pretty balanced, and it shouldn't be like one super on top of the other when it comes to that riff. Keeping in mind that we can turn this cut on and off throughout the song. If we need it in one spot but not in others, we can turn it off.
Guardians of his word, we are called to strengthen our purpose. The world looks to us, but what they see is indifference. Temptations of power.
Okay, might be imagining this, but I do kind of feel like the guitars lose a little something. It is not much, but I feel like the guitars lose a little something in that first chorus. Now, the reason I say I might be imagining that is because I was turning the cut on and off while the guitars were in solo earlier, and it didn't seem to change the sound. But something about the context there kind of just makes me feel like the guitars lose a little something when that's on. What peak is that that's doing that? Peak 3. So we want peak 3 gain. We're going to do the gain this time instead of the on and off. And let's just have that cut during chorus 2. That's the only time that we really, really need the piano to cut above the guitars. So for the rest of the song, that cut can go away, and we can just be at normal 0. And then for chorus 2, that cut will just boop right down in there so that the piano can jump out a little bit better, and then on we go. All right. Let's move on. Now, we started with a pretty important part there. I should point out that, like, that was 2 tiny little sections right there that we were focusing on, and that took a while. It's not going to be like that for all of them. Some of these are probably fine as is. I'm hoping our next thing that we're going to focus on, which is these 3 little bits right here, the organ in the beginning of this song, I'm pretty sure those are fine as is. So let's just check and make sure. I did turn them up just a little bit, not by much. I turned it up by a decibel and then ended up turning it down half a decibel. So we've netted up half a decibel. I'm wondering now though. Quick change. I think I do want this organ actually to be up that full decibel, so we'll do that. But then the second organ that comes in, let's make a small change here too and go down another half decibel on the low part and then back kind of to normal there for the end. nice. Yeah, I think that does it for those. Pretty good with how those are sitting at the moment. Wouldn't hurt my feelings if the main part of this came up just a little bit more, but maybe we'll come back to that later. Nothing else on the organ tracks in this song. Okay, so we are coming down into our orchestra stuff. Our first two tracks, the fade-in orchestra and the orchestra hit, are both things that we just heard just there. That's the only thing that happens on those tracks is that bum right there, and I think that's sitting just fine with no further changes already. So we're now moving into our low strings. Now we've already dug out space for these. If you remember, we have cut 60 where the bass drum sits, 80 where the bass guitar sits, and we have boosted 120, which is where we're kind of telling these low strings to go. So that's taken care of. These should have their own space in which we can turn them up and down. The low strings are, at least for me, historically something that is more ambient than actively heard. So this is just something where Sam is adding an extra layer of kind of low end, but it's not something that I'm trying to push until you can hear the sound of the MIDI cello being played, you know what I mean, or whatever. I'm sure there are probably multiple cellos in the sound that we're using here. This first thing is happening during the chorus, so if we kind of take a listen to what's going on with that specifically, that would be this track right here. There it is. Yeah, so you can tell what's going on there. You can tell that we've got a few low-stringed instruments, probably cellos, maybe double bass in there, that sort of thing, going on. And this is not something that I'm trying to get up there so that it's like really, really heard, but it's adding something that we notice if we take it away, right? So there's a point in it being there, but the point is not, that's a cool part. It's adding to the overall energy of everything. And mostly that's what's on this track, is just that sort of stuff. Let's go ahead and let's do this way so that we can get through this. Oh, it's actually just about time for me to get moving here. What we're going to do to hear these a little bit better is we're going to mute the high string channels. So there's 3 low string channels and 3 high string channels. There looks like they're almost never playing at the same time. In fact, strings 2 seems to only be here at the end of chorus 3. Come on, bug. Get out of my face. So there's not a whole lot going on the 2, low strings or high strings. Looks like strings 1 and strings 3 never actually play at the same time. They were probably different takes that we were trying not to overlap. So we can hear, when it comes to orchestra, if we hear anything at all, it's these low strings, so that we can really hear what's going on in there. Having said that, that is where we are going to start next time. Okay, making sure that I've got everything set where I want it here so that I remember where we're at next time. I think we're good to go here. All right, yes. So you guys kind of know the ending stuff, the closing remarks here, if you will. We are at a good place with this song. Yes, it is taking forever. This is another hour and 20 minutes that we have devoted to the same song we've been doing since episode 1. I've said it a billion times, but I'll say it a billion more. This just takes a while. When you've got this many tracks, when your song is this long, when there's so many different moving parts, and you got to make everything work together, it takes a while. So the other songs are going to also take a while. They won't take this long, but the other songs are going to take a while too. We're going to be here for a while doing this. But again, hopefully you guys are enjoying watching this process happen. Most of the people that I know, especially non-musicians, but even a lot of musicians, don't really understand when they hear the words mix process or mixing and mastering. They don't really know what that means or what that entails, or just how much work it is when you really care about making stuff sound good. So I hope that this has been enjoyable to watch and listen to and see how it shapes up and evolves and becomes something that was a little better than it was when we started. Hopefully you found this a little bit educational regarding that specifically, knowing what mixing and mastering is and how much work goes into it when you've got somebody that cares doing it. Hopefully, if you do this sort of thing, you've found this interesting and maybe found a couple of tips along the way for helping to make your stuff sound better. if your stuff sounds better than this, I wouldn't mind some tips. I certainly don't think I'm the king of anything, trust me. So if you've got some stuff you want to throw out there, if you're watching this and you feel like you've got some tips, I am not going to be offended if you say, hey, what about this? Have you ever tried this sort of thing? You know what I mean? So I appreciate all the interaction. I appreciate anybody who's watching right now, anybody who watched earlier, anybody who's watching this in the future when it's not live, anybody who interacted here while we were live. Really appreciate your time. And everybody in the band, really, we can't thank you enough for this sort of stuff. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out and listen to this, and we hope too that you enjoy hearing what we do. This is really special to us. We don't make any money doing this, so we can't do it for a living, but we do it because we love it. We do it because we feel like it means something. It means something for us, especially this album. After the passing of our singer, this album meant a lot to us, so it's really special to work on it and hear it shaping up. Okay, before I ramble any further, I'm going to go ahead and close it out. So one more time, because I can't say it often enough, thank you guys for the support. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully we will get into this tomorrow. I'm still not sure. I wish I could get a consistent time to do this, but there's so much going on that I'm just kind of doing it as when I know that I'm going to have a good hour and a half or so that I can devote to it. So hopefully we'll get to do some more tomorrow. Hopefully very soon we will be finished with this song so that we can move to the next one, because I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing this one. And regardless of any of that, we are going to keep moving forward until this whole album is done. Thank you guys, and we'll catch you hopefully tomorrow. Fingers crossed.